so hard to not laugh when you start counting down. Okay.
All right, welcome to the second episode of the Solo Moviegoers Club. I'm Sean. This is my daughter Kaya. We are hosting this podcast to remove the stigma of seeing movies alone, and also to talk about the movies that we see and love. So the rules are, and we won't repeat this every time, but since we're just getting started, this is only our second episode ever. We haven't uploaded our first episode yet, but we'll get around to that. The rules of this are, so I live near Detroit, Kaya lives in LA. On the same day, we go see the same movie. We can't talk to each other about the movie until we get on the podcast. We're also not allowed to read any professional or fan-submitted reviews anywhere about the movies. We have to go in knowing as little as possible, and then we come here and just kind of brain dump our thoughts on both our solo movie-going experiences and the movie itself. So, today's movie was The Front Room, which... It was pretty wild.
Because you chose this movie, I didn't look anything up about it. I had no idea what it was about. So I went in blind.
So I have to admit, before we planned on seeing this movie, I had read a very, very, very little about it. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't plan on seeing it, but then it was the only thing that we could both see at the same time as it worked for our schedules today. So it was actually kind of fun to go into a movie that we weren't really either planning on seeing. But it was, well, first of all, let me comment on, before we get into the movie itself, the experience. So this was a very different experience. The last movie we saw was Beetlejuice, and in my theater it was mostly people there with other people, but today it was all solo moviegoers.
Really?
I saw this movie at 3:30. I didn't see it at my normal theater, so Kaya knows this. I live walking distance from two movie theaters, and this was not showing at either of those theaters at a time that worked, so I had to drive 20 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went to this big multiplex theater that's 20 minutes away, and the most important thing that Kaya and I both know is whether or not you can get a coffee into the movie theater, because it's critical to drink coffee during movies. No other beverage really will suffice.
Seriously.
And I was running a little behind, so I took a canned cold brew from our house, and no questions asked. I had banter with the guy at the front desk, and he didn't ask any questions about it. And so I was able to have a coffee in this movie theater with 3 other people. Also, I've been taking a tally on the gender of the people who are watching movies alone. I feel like it's mostly dudes, and this was me, one other guy, and then one girl in the back. And I have to say, the guy, very strange. This guy was maybe in the movie for half of it, and every time he left, he came back with another drink. Okay. And so by the end, this guy leaves, and he's one person taking up 3 cup holders of half-finished sodas.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, for me, there was no one in there. There was a mom and a daughter, and then one guy alone. And the one guy alone also had a feast. He had 2 popcorn buckets. He had a large drink and then something else. And he was very loud, but it was fine.
Just loud eating?
Yeah. Loud chewing.
The girl behind me was pretty loud eating popcorn too. And she was eating popcorn through the whole movie. It wasn't a super long movie, but it was 90 minutes of straight chomping.
I haven't thought about this until literally today, but because I'm vegan, I haven't gotten any sort of snack thing at a movie. I feel like it would distract me so much if I was eating something. I was chewing gum and I was like, I need to spit this out. This is not cool.
Yeah, I was just drinking my canned cold brew. Very happy that I had it.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
So, by the way, that's a disgusting movie to eat during.
Yeah, I was so grossed out the whole time.
That was want to be even more grossed out?
Yeah.
So I just want to preface this by saying our podcast is filled with spoilers. Do not listen to our podcast if you do not want to have things spoiled, if you do not want to hear about the movies, because we are going to talk about the movies. This movie, very generally speaking, it's it's interesting. It's on the border of sort of like maternity horror.
Yeah.
And gerontophobic horror, which is fear of the elderly.
Yeah.
And it like combined those things, which
Oh
I
my
am
god.
down for, like, for gerontophobia. I am terrified of old
Yeah.
people. Like, I like old people from a distance. I want to know the things that they have to pass on to us, but like life in an old body is totally horrifying to
Yeah.
me.
No.
And this one went into it. And
This one gave me anxiety about getting old, for sure. It was disgusting.
it was
I
totally
was,
disgusting.
and the thing is that, like, obviously there weren't a lot of people in theater, but I was, like, cracking up during the whole thing. I was expecting to be terrified just based on the movie poster, but I was crying laughing during the whole thing.
I was laughing a lot too. It was very funny. It was the basic premise is this mother to be and her husband, but the husband sucked. Like, not as an actor, as like as a person, the character. The character was a
He
terrible
bothered
character.
me a lot, I will
He
say,
was
until
such
the end.
a whiny little feckless clown.
Yeah, for sure.
And
So Belinda and Norman.
Belinda and Norman, yeah, Norman Jean, right?
Yes.
That's like Marilyn Monroe, Norma Jean. Why
Yeah.
was the guy's
Yeah.
name Norman Jean?
I have no idea. I was wondering that too.
But anyway, yes, Belinda, or as Solange would say, Belinder.
Yeah.
Which
That
becomes-
bothered me as well.
They are waiting on their kid to be born. She's an archaeology professor, and he's a public defender. Which that dude couldn't even defend himself. How is he going to defend somebody else? But maybe
He's
that's
probably
the point.
terrible at his job.
Horrible. So horrible. And it's also, there's a problem in movies. I have made a movie like this, by the way, but there's this problem where husbands and wives are mismatched. And you're like, she is way too good for him.
I thought that too.
And yeah, so she's an archaeology professor, but she's getting overlooked at her job, and she quits. And it turns out that he's a public defender. He's trying to get a promotion. It doesn't seem like it's going that well. They're broke, and they've got this baby coming, and they don't have their house together yet. He is estranged from his family, and he gets a call that his dad is dying. So, of course, we know what's going to happen next. His dad dies. He doesn't want to have to deal with his stepmother. They go to the funeral. He sees the stepmother. Some weird stuff happens. The stepmother's obviously a bit of a character. And it is revealed that she is going to give them everything in his father's will if, and this is his father's dying wish, the stepmom, who the son hates, comes and lives with them in their house. So, we know where this is going next.
I thought, because I didn't like read into this, I thought it was gonna be like a Get Out sort of thing, but it wasn't. So
I did too. I thought it was going. So this, I said it was like on the border of like maternal / like matriarchal horror and gerontophobia, but it was also religious horror. Mm-hmm. Kind of. Like the mom's very devout religious. The stepmom, sorry, is very devout religious. Like, she's speaking in tongues. She's hardcore, some sort of Southern Christian, but there's like a mystical element to it. And at one point, I felt like she even said she's not able to worship the way she wants to worship, which made me think that there was some sort of maybe occult Christianity-based thing happening. Anyway, she believes that she can, how do they put it? Like, miracles, wishes, and something else. She believes she has powers.
Yeah.
And the movie kind of starts to lean into you thinking that she has powers, but then ultimately it's not really about that. Like, whether her like freaky take on religion is anything, they're tapping in anything or not, is kind of irrelevant. It's really about this like just sociopathic stepmom who comes in and tries to ruin their lives.
yeah, and to be honest, I think like a big part of why I personally felt like the audience would think like, oh, maybe she does have powers is because it's like how powerful religion is on outsiders. Like, I'm not religious, we're not religious. And there are like some times when I'm talking to someone who's uber religious where I'm like, maybe. And I feel like it's from more of like Belinda's perspective, because she's kind of like scared about her pregnancy and about the future. And she like really taps into the stepmom's mindset as a sort of like comforting mechanism.
Yeah, it also seems like she wants to. I think Belinda goes into it with the best intentions, right? Her
Yeah.
husband doesn't have a good relationship with his stepmom, and Belinda wants to be the one to do the right thing. I think they also want the money.
Yeah, for sure. And she knows that.
Yeah, and the stepmom is very old, and she walks around the house on these two walkers or canes, and there's a very distinct noise to her gait,
Yeah.
which is used to horror effect because you always hear her coming. And what just happened? Oh, somebody tried to FaceTime me. I'm on Do Not Disturb. Come on, people. We're doing a
You're
podcast
too
here.
popular.
Oh, I know. It's for one of our other kids. It's not for me.
Oh,
But
of course.
so here's where the movie gets pretty interesting is that and again it's like three movies in one. There's this religious horror component which is scary on the surface, and they do a really good job I think of using the visuals of sort of Christian art and the they use like the mysticism component really well at the beginning, but then the movie really becomes about caring for this elderly woman who is really pretty awful and also physically failing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of bodily fluids and solids in this movie, and I was not prepared for that.
One thing I can't do is bodily fluids. So I was like kind of feeling ill during the whole thing, but
I
like
was thinking
laughing through it.
so the last movie we saw was Beetlejuice, and
Yeah.
Kaya said like her biggest take on the movie, the thing she didn't like was how gross it was, like
The green
goo.
goo. This
green
was
goo.
way grosser.
The
was
first
so
time when she
bad.
started coughing and like puked onto that napkin.
The first time I was like, there's no way this is happening right now. It was so bad.
All I could think about was you in the theater and how grossed out you probably were.
Yeah, no. No. It was horrific. It was like baby throw up. Orange.
Yeah, there
So
was a
gross.
lot. There was a lot, and for some reason, so the bodily fluids coming from an old person are much grosser than bodily
Yeah.
fluids coming from anybody else.
Like I remember what is it called? Is it Triangle of Sadness? That
Yeah.
movie? It like at first I was like, "Oh, this is going to be one of those movies." And it was way grosser. So, in that particular movie there's like a scene with like vomit and seasickness, and this was a much more amplified version of that.
Yeah, I would say from a volume standpoint, there's many more gallons of bodily fluids and solids in Triangle of Sickness, but it's
Yeah.
just so funny. And in this, it's gross, and they linger on it, and they use
I
it pretty
absolutely looked
effectively.
away. Yeah. Oh my god.
But it was, I have to say, I don't know if I was this. I'm going to tell you maybe the most disgusting thing I've ever told you,
Okay.
and for the public to hear. But I had to take our dog for a walk after the movie, and he has never done this before, or maybe I don't pay as close of attention. These things were just on my mind, but he pooped and peed at the same time
Okay.
while I was walking him. And
Okay.
I've never seen him do this before, and all I could think about was the mom in this movie.
Ew. That's so gross.
Yeah. It got into my head.
I think it's just worse that it's an old woman.
It is. I think it because it forces you to look at the fact that one day you might be incontinent.
Yeah.
But there's a twist. The old woman is not actually in the physical condition that she pretends to be.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously, when you get to the end, she uses her fecal incontinence as a weapon to be able to distract the mom, to do something to the baby that has now been born, and so I think all of the incontinence was an act.
For sure. It totally was. Especially in the end. Like the way I loved the ending, by the way. But the way that she died, like she wouldn't have died. Like she was probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
Totally fine. And she could, it was later also revealed that she didn't need the walkers and that she could totally walk on her own.
Yes, and Yeah, so that's, I mean, the big, not to skip to the end, but let's skip to the end since you kind of went there already. The old woman dies,
Yeah.
and it's hilarious. Like, she is putting them through absolute misery. The husband has come, the husband for a while tries to defend the mom. All these things are happening. The mom is essentially, I don't know, would it be considered gaslighting what she's doing? The mom, the grandma, I guess, the stepmom of the husband, Solange, she is egging on Belinda, the wife and new mother, and behind the husband's back. So the husband is essentially being gaslit by his mom to think that that his wife is treating his ailing stepmother horribly. But in fact, the stepmom is trying to take over the house. She's
Yeah.
trying to, and I think she's got this weak stepson who she's taking advantage of and who she's trying to steal. Essentially, she's trying to steal this family away from the new mother, Belinda. And that was my favorite part of the movie was the times when the husband, what was the husband's name? Norman. When Norman was like carrying Solange away,
Yeah.
and Solange would
Ew.
would smile back.
Yeah, that was good.
And the actress who played Solange that was a big performance, a very
Yeah.
big performance, like comical, but I think it worked for the character and for the movie.
For sure. Yeah, like the voice was at the very beginning I couldn't understand her. It took me a while to like get a hold of it, what she was saying, but I think it was so theatrical and so perfect for that role.
Yeah, it was. It was. What did you think of the movie? What's your take on it?
I liked it. I like how there were aspects of like trauma from Belinda and like her sort of nightmares playing a huge, or her sleepwalking like visions, whatever, playing a big role in the overall plot. Like even in the middle with Solange becoming like the mother of the house and like breastfeeding her own daughter, and I just thought it was really well done. And especially because she has like, I don't know if she had like postpartum, but like Norman is almost like led to believe that she does have like postpartum depression and like might hurt their baby, but it's really just like the mother-in-law.
Well, and also that Norman is led to believe that Belinda has postpartum depression and is in fact abusing Solange.
Yeah.
Solange smacks her own face against a coffee table to make it look like Belinda hit her.
And then in the end, she ended up killing her. So I don't know. But like, and he didn't know, obviously.
Yeah, was this movie pro matricide? That's the big question. Is it pro murder?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was. That was my
Yeah.
takeaway. I was really wondering what the takeaway was. It was pro murder?
Well, I thought because it wasn't revealed until the very end after the funeral that Belinda was like the killer. That was like the last like scene. And I was like really rooting for her when there's a specific chair that she would sit in, and like Belinda was going to like run over the chair as just like a symbol of power, I guess, and she decided not to do it. And I was like, ugh, like that's like killing her. Like she should have done that.
Well,
And
the chair was a symbol of the chair was a symbol of motherhood. Remember, she said that to her students in the beginning.
yeah.
That the chair was the like Isis. What was it? Isis meant. Did Isis mean mother? Something. Isis was sitting in a chair, and the shape of the chair, and the fact that the chair has a back, legs, and arms.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
literally a chair represents mother.
Yeah.
And what does Isis mean? How do I not know what Isis means?
They
Oh
literally
god,
said
I'm
it.
googling ISIS right now. I'm totally gonna get flagged by like every domestic security organization. Yeah, all I can find is that ISIS mythology. Queen of the Throne, the goddess of healing and magic. Yeah, Isis translates to Queen of the Throne, and the throne is the shape of a human. So yeah, the chair represented the queen.
Yeah, not motherhood.
This was this was the big challenge, right? The
Yeah.
conflict in the movies. Who's going to be the queen of the house?
Yeah. Or the mother. So I guess, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And do you think that there was anything supernatural happening, or was this purely psychological?
I think it was all psychological, and that's what I really liked about it. We didn't know what was real and what wasn't. Like, we did, but there were a lot of blurred lines with visions and sounds.
Yeah, I think Solange just really got into Belinda's head.
And then also with, like, the dreams.
That's the only part that could have theoretically actually been supernatural,
Yeah.
is the dreams and the freaky deaky church people that she had over.
Yeah.
Like,
I really liked...
how did they heal her C-section wound so quickly, or did
Yeah.
that not really happen?
Yeah. I don't think it really happened, but
It was a breezy movie. It was less than
Yeah.
90 minutes, like with credits, 90 minutes.
yeah, it was quick.
Question: that was an A24 movie.
Uh-huh.
Would you have thought that was an A24 movie if you didn't know it was an A24 movie?
No.
Me either.
I totally went into it expecting something completely different, especially because it's an A24 film.
For sure. I felt like that movie felt like something that I would have found on VHS at a video store in 1996.
Yeah. It felt like a streaming platform movie. And I don't know if it was like just the way that it was filmed or what, but
I like the production design. Their house was cool, and I like the
Me too.
changeover when at one point it really is as Solange is trying to take the family over. She redoes all the furniture.
yeah.
And does it in her style. Like, literally brings her kitchen table into the house where she had dinners with her son.
I was going to talk about this. It like gave me anxiety. Like, I have this weird thing where I go into like a Goodwill or something with a specific like old mildewy scent where I black out from it, and like during the whole movie I was thinking about that.
Oh, yeah.
The smell, like that, the look of it, like all of the new furniture in that house.
Well, I have kind of a velvet desk chair that I'm sitting on right now. But that velvet furniture, when it's old, always has that certain dust smell to it. And you know.
Yeah.
And the house got darker, too. There wasn't much natural light coming in by the end. It was very dark. It was very elderly. Like kind of Baroque in a way, but also dying.
Yeah. It felt very shed, as our family would say.
Very shed. We don't know the meaning of this. This is something that Mumsy says, speaking of
Yeah.
maternal lineage. There's a maternal lineage of the term shed in our family. It's like something gross, something that makes
Gross,
you feel bad.
yeah. Like it's like the equivalent of saying Sunday scaries or something. It's like anxiety inducing.
Yeah, shed. It was. I don't think the reviews of this movie are going to be good.
Okay.
I'm glad I didn't read any before seeing. I enjoyed it.
Same.
I
I totally did.
Did you like it better than Beetlejuice?
Way better. It was
Wow.
way better.
Wow,
And it was gross.
I definitely did not think it was better than Beetlejuice.
Really?
But it was good. It was.
Crazy.
Will you watch this movie again?
For me, it's like a one and done type of movie, but I definitely liked it, and I would definitely recommend it to like other people to go see it.
I agree. I'm glad I saw it in a theater. I won't see it again. I don't think I've seen Brandy in a movie in a long time.
Yeah. No.
The other cast members, I didn't really recognize anyone, which is interesting. Maybe that's why it felt like a streaming movie to you.
Maybe.
But yeah, it was. I think a lot of times the beef, as a person who has made several streaming movies, the beef that I have with most streaming movies is the lack of attention to detail in production design and the lack of depth in production design. A lot of times, there's a really famous thing, you can find it somewhere. It compares, God, I don't know what it is, one of the like Lana Condor starring romance movies.
Oh God, yeah.
It compares a shot in one of those in a diner, where this is clearly not a diner. It is clearly a set. I think she's sitting across from like either Zach or Cody. In the shot, it's a kind of wide two shot, and they're in this diner that doesn't look like any diner you've ever seen. It doesn't look lived in. It looks like a set. It looks like a student film set, but it's a Netflix budget. Like, how can they not make a set look better? And then it compares it to a scene from When Harry Met Sally, when Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal are sitting in a diner, and there's stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
The diner looks lived in. There's photos on the walls. There's people. There's extras. It looks like a real, like any diner you've ever been to. And the article's really good. We can maybe link to it in the show notes, but it talks about what the Netflix look is. And this movie did not have that. This movie did not look like your traditional
I disagree.
streaming movie. Ooh, okay.
Because I feel like, at least, well, I made a mental note at the very beginning because their house was like kind of in a renovation phase. There were paint cans everywhere, not a lot of real furniture. And I'm thinking like, oh, they did this for the budget. And then also with like the costumes, like the wig of the grandma. I know it was like her thing, like obviously not her hair, but just like the way that looked, it felt very like theatrical and not super like high budget to me.
Interesting. Yeah, there were a couple of moments where I felt I don't know what the budget of this movie was. I would imagine it wasn't small. I don't know if A24
Really?
produced this or acquired it and then distributed it, but I don't think this was a terribly cheap movie. Speaking of streaming movies, the trailer came out today for a streaming movie that's the first movie that Kai and I worked on together. Mr. Crockett comes out October 11th. Before that, it's playing at Fantastic Fest, Scream Fest, Sitges. Pretty exciting.
Woo!
That movie has rich production design. That movie does not look like
Yeah.
what we typically associate with a streaming movie,
For sure.
if we do say so ourselves.
Yeah.
We should do another one of these where we should have Brandon or Carl on sometime before the release
That
of
would
that
be
movie.
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
Brandon's the director, writer of Mr. Crockett. Carl's the co-writer and one of the producers.
That would be super fun.
Yeah, it'd be cool. But anyway, I think, well, I want to look at what some reviews are.
Okay.
But before that, this is a rough one for this movie. If you had to be one character from this movie, who would you want to be?
Oh my god. That's really hard because I feel like Norman and Belinda both went through some pretty gross things. But
There is a scene where Belinda has her elderly stepmother-in-law's poop covering like her whole body. Like she's trying to hold her kid, and like there's feces on her neck.
yeah. Or like the scene that I keep thinking about that's going to replay in my dreams for the next month is when Norman is carrying her out to the bathroom and like her shirt's all up and there's like a giant diaper like full of poop like leaking all over the floor. It's so gross. It's
That was
so bad.
The montage where I think Norman's at work, and it's the time period where he's up for a promotion, and so Belinda is like, okay, go after your promotion. I'll take care of things at home. I'll take care of Solange, and it's this really cool montage where it's just like an overhead shot of a toilet, and each shot of the toilet, it's grosser inside. The toilet flushes, you see her cleaning. The toilet flushes. You see
I
her
had to look
cleaning.
away during this. It was so gross. It was like a baby crying and then her like helping her. The toilet was...
Oh yeah, so there's poop coming from both sides, from the youth and the elderlies in this one, because she's dealing with
too
this
much.
baby. And yeah, babies are always tough in movies because they're obviously, even in the biggest budget movies, you can't have a baby all the time, so there's a lot of dolls being used. But I thought this one did a pretty effective job. Sometimes, I was cognizant of the doll, but it did a pretty effective job of just not having the baby around more than the baby absolutely needed to be there.
Yeah.
You'd hear the baby crying, you knew the baby was there, but you weren't looking at just some woman holding a doll all the time.
Yeah.
So who would you be?
Probably Norman.
Really? That guy?
He's not great, but he had it the easiest, I would say. He got to go to work.
He got to go to work. But he sucked.
I don't care. I do not care. There's no way I could stay at that house all day. I would go insane.
Yeah, something about watching him whine, I couldn't take it.
But you wouldn't
Whining
have to
about
watch that.
watching
You would
him
have to you would just be whining yourself, so
Oh, I can do that.
yeah. It would be easy.
Okay. So, I have not looked at any reviews yet. I'm about to open up my iPad and look at these. I forgot to set up screen record on this, so you'll have to screenshot some of these later for the edit. Okay. The front room. People of Letterboxd have...
Oh, I should open mine.
10,000 people have watched it. 1.6
When did this come out?
have hearted it. Friday, I think, Thursday. The most popular review says, I don't think this ultimately goes anywhere or says anything. Also, there's so much piss and shit. Oh my God. And they gave it 2 stars. The next one says, the front room is playing with a fun premise that I've described as The Visit meets Rosemary's Baby, but the threat is your racist mother-in-law. It's pretty unfortunate, unfortunately it says here, but it's pretty unfortunate the plot doesn't evolve past the first 15 minutes and the whole thing just boils off. Brandy and Catherine Hunter play off each other well. Is it odd that 2 white dudes directed this? At the very least, it's limiting. That is another point to bring up that we didn't talk about. 2 points. One, it's really tough anytime there's any religious horror that involves a baby to have it not feel like it's trying to in some way be Rosemary's Baby, which isn't necessarily fair, just because that's the movie, right? But it's the same as any movie that involves a religious horror movie that involves an exorcism. It gets compared to The Exorcist. Like those are just the titans of those subgenres. But there is a race element to this that is interesting. That we didn't bring up yet, that Solange is a like total racist. Yeah. She's got like a Daughters of the Confederacy certificate of some sort, and at one point she does a really disturbing impression of a Klansperson. And
she like talks a lot about like how she feels oppressed for not being able to be as religious as she wants, and how that's equivalent to like racism in America.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe the racism element of it wasn't like it was there throughout, but I
felt it wasn't like overly.
It was alluded to, but it wasn't like it wasn't
It wasn't a huge part. Yeah, and that's what I was kind of expecting when it first opened. I've noticed a lot too. A lot of people are calling it like a campy era of movies, sort of like Bottoms, or like movies that are a little bit more silly, but there's still like a serious storyline and it's still realistic. I guess you could call that pretty campy.
Yeah, this was definitely campy. It wasn't, if you think of the A24 family drama horror movies, this wasn't Hereditary, which has its fun moments but is ultimately pretty serious. This wasn't that. It was definitely sillier than that.
Yeah.
We've got somebody who says, fuck y'all, I loved this. We've got...
I'm only seeing really bad reviews.
Really?
Yeah, like Insufferable, 1 star. Like...
Oh yeah, I've got a 1 star here. Congrats to A24. It's
not forgettable.
Congrats to A24, who have not achieved hagsploitation per se, but they have established their own cheapo horror subgenre called "Hey guys, look, a naked old person, and also there's poop." That's kind of accurate.
Yeah, it really is.
Somebody else says, Brandy, the icon you are, incredibly hilarious and campy AF, kind of like how Ma and The Visit was. Oh, I forgot about Ma. Brandy did well with what she had to work with, not to mention Catherine Hunter. Ultimately, this was disappointing and had so much potential to be more unhinged, and the ending was so predictable and lackluster, but hey, at least this was better than Afraid. Plus, Andrew Burnap hot DILF alert.
Wow.
Oh, this is a good one. She has more patience than me. I would have put that old racist hag in a grave in the backyard. Some people have some theories.
Okay.
Theory time. There is no mom. Solange isn't real. That's just the baby. She's in the baby's room, can't stay in her bed, cries a lot, shits everywhere, just throws feces all over the house, demands a bunch of new furniture, pronounces your name wrong. Eventually, she even learns to walk. This explains why they can't get rid of her and why the parents never seem to take care of the actual baby. She is the actual baby. And then the movie becomes instead the fear that your child won't be this amazing angel like you expect, but instead inherits all the worst traits of your in-laws, tears your marriage apart, and is, gasp, a lot of work. It also makes the ending way better. Movie still sucks, and maybe I'm not trying to justify sitting through it for 95 minutes, but...
Oh my god.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's like when you have to go to an English class or a literature class and overanalyze a book.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually the most accurate of all these reviews. This all could have been avoided if she didn't marry a mid-white man. Let's see what Rotten Tomatoes has to say.
I'm literally going to be looking at these all night. They're way too good.
Just the world, I talked about this on the last podcast, but people just want to be rough on things.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why.
I rated this 4 stars on my letterbox.
Four stars.
Yeah. I thought it was so disgusting.
The I don't know. The title seems lazy.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Like, they could have done something
Like
more.
she stayed in the front room. It could have been the baby's room. It could have been wait, the whole time I had the iPad up you couldn't see my face for the video?
No, you could.
Okay. By the way, don't judge, because we are also filmmakers. Don't judge our filmmaking quality on the look of our podcast. We're going to improve this. First, we're getting the format down. We're going to make this thing really work. Eventually, we'll up the look. We'll improve it. But
We'll do some episodes together in person.
yeah,
It'll be different.
We've got big plans. Oof. Not a great on the Rotten Tomatoes. So, okay, a couple people who liked it. Carlos Aguilar from Los Angeles Times. Perverse playfulness with which Hunter handles even the most grotesque scatological scenes fuels a disturbing yet stellar performance, one that's far more memorable than the movie as a whole. Judging,
Okay.
This is Adrian Horton from The Guardian. Judging by the enthusiasm at the theater for Belinda's sharpened jibes as Solange's antics become impossible to ignore, the front room does capture one delicious, rich truth. Hell hath no fury like a mother-in-law scorned. And then a bunch of people who didn't dig it. RogerEbert.com. The premise proposes a battle of wits and control via a brewing storm between the two leads that never really comes to pass. Thomas.
I think that one's a little too serious, personally.
What's wrong with hagsploitation?
Yeah, nothing.
It's like we talked last week about how Beetlejuice makes you confront death from the very beginning. It's dead people dying, and this makes you confront. I mean, let's strip away the three different parts of the movie. The religious thread doesn't really go anywhere. I think it could have been better on that front. But you know,
For sure.
I bet it did. I bet there is. I bet the first cut of this movie pays off a lot of those religious subplots, but they were trying to get it down to 90, and they had to lose some things. That would be my prediction, or not prediction, my guess. And the matriarchal horror element of it, I think, works really well. I think that's completely fleshed out. I think that story's all there. I don't think it's really missing anything. The generational trauma kind of on both sides, all of that works. The elderly component of it, I guess the hagsploitation component of it, it's effective. It makes you confront what your body's going to look like and do one
It's
day.
like the whole thing is about the circle of life. Like, she's pregnant, she's having a baby. It shows that like whole process, and then it's like also the end of that too.
Yeah, actually, funny you mentioned the process of having the baby. The birth scene was one place where I didn't know if that was the movie showing its budget, or if that was just an interesting idea they had, or if they had some other birth scene where that they cut for time, because it was this sort of really impressionistic birth scene that you almost didn't know. I didn't know if there was going to be a baby at the end of that, or if
same.
It was an emergency C-section. And so you guess that it's sort of caused by the mother-in-law who's praying at the time, and I don't know why they did that.
I don't either. I thought it was a weird choice personally, and I also think that that whole like kind of section before that felt like a very like slower paced movie, and then right after that it was like really fast. It like totally shifted the narrative in the movie, I think.
Yeah, I guess the pacing did jump a couple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I don't feel like the movie was mean-spirited. I mean, it was about a terrible person.
No. And I also think it's like making light of that.
I do too. Solange was a horrible person doing horrible things to decent people, and ultimately vengeance was served. She had no redeeming qualities.
No, not one.
but it was
I
fun.
thought that there would be something, but no, she's just a villain.
She was just a villain. She was just a straight up villain, like a kind of
Yeah.
one dimensional villain who was performed really well by the actor, which made it really fun to watch. Like
For sure.
I think this was a completely harmless, fun movie to watch that didn't really have anything to say about the world, but that's okay.
No.
Not every movie needs to. Some do. Some are just fun. Like I had a fun 90 minutes. Like me and the other two people alone in the theater. Well, me and one guy especially were laughing a lot. You said you were laughing a lot.
Yeah, the
It
whole
was
time.
it was a weird, fun movie.
Yeah. I like that it was. I don't know if it's because I didn't read into it or anything, but it was totally unexpected.
So the two guys who wrote and directed this movie are the brothers of the writer director of The Witch and The Northman. So he's like one of A24's, like I would say, stable directors, one of their biggest kind of marquee directors, and really of my generation of filmmakers, one of the few marquee directors who are out there. So it's interesting to see that then A24 made a movie with his brothers, and I think this probably
They're getting cooked.
they're
on
getting
Letterboxd.
cooked. They're getting
Yeah.
cooked. Are they getting cooked for being Robert Eggers' brothers making a
No.
movie, or just
Yeah,
getting cooked because?
They're probably from comparison, to be totally honest.
So you don't think it would be getting cooked as well done?
They wouldn't be cooked. Like,
Right.
I think it's just the name.
Yeah, that's unfair. Why do you think people really don't like this movie, or do you think it's easy just to hate on it because it is gross and it's this? I don't like. I don't know. I don't like saying negative things about movies because I know unless it feels like it was a total like, unless I feel the movie was made cynically, like if the people made it for. They just made it for a paycheck, or they made it and you can feel like they hated the movie they were making. Unless that's the case, I don't really like to slam something because I know the care and love and hard work that goes into it. And like no one sets out to make a bad movie. Sometimes
Yeah.
some things don't work. And I don't think this was a bad movie by any means. I think this is going to sound like a bigger critique than it is. I think it was sort of a slight movie in which it's just 90 minutes of gross and some scares. I jumped. There was a jump scare. Did you get jump scared when the music turned on that one time?
No.
Oh,
Which
I
part?
absolutely jumped. When Solange is sitting in the chair.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a good jump scare. I love a good jump scare.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that was cool.
I feel like right now, with my generation, I'll speak from my generation's perspective, I think we think things need to have a specific message or meaning or like talk about, I'm going to quote Jaden Smith, the political and economic state of the world right now. But like it doesn't. It can just be a funny movie. Like it doesn't have to be serious.
Yeah, and if anything, the little this movie did with the racist subplot, to me, that really was more just about how awful of a person she was. Like, in
Yeah.
case you start to think that you can justify Solange, like, no, and she's racist. That was just another irredeemable character flaw. But yeah, the movie didn't have a whole lot to say about the state of the world. I mean, I guess if you were really looking for it, it's the horrors
I think people are looking for it.
The horrors that we could face when we have to take care of people older than us, and the traumas that we have from people of our of parents who maybe didn't treat their kids well. But even that like to me,
Yeah.
those are just excuses for a fun to create this fun world in which we can see these people face off against each other in this psychological warfare.
Yeah, and I totally think that it's still relatable. Like most people have like a crazy stepmom or mother-in-law, and there are so many movies that are comedies that are about that don't have to be too deep. They're just like silly little stories. So I'm kind of surprised by the reviews because I really enjoyed it, but
I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised by. I mean, they're not that bad, but I'm.
The one
No one
stars.
has the one star's pretty bad. I mean, I've got plenty of 1-star reviews on my movies, so I don't I don't
I
judge
know.
1 stars
We
too
know.
harshly. The the one thing they set it up so that there was the movie ended like 5 times.
Yes.
I call it a Return of the King problem from Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. That movie ends for 30 minutes. It almost feels like they want to wrap up every character's subplot
Yeah.
and get everybody together, and you think it's over, and then it's not over yet. And this movie suffered from a pretty gnarly Return of the King problem. I could have, so again, spoiler alert, the mother-in-law dies. There's a really hilarious scene, like cut, where you cut from her dying, her being found dead, to birds chirping and pleasant music playing and a crematorium. And you see her body and this necklace that's a theme that comes back throughout the movie that she's wearing. And
I thought it could have ended there.
I totally, that's what I was trying to get
I
to.
thought it was.
If the credits would have rolled over her skeleton in the crematorium, I would have stood up and clapped. That would have been such a bold ending. I didn't need anything after that. I didn't need to know that that she goes, that the mother goes and gets a job. I didn't need to know that
they moved,
got a new house. I didn't need to know that she was pregnant again.
Yeah.
I didn't even need to find out that she actually murdered her mother-in-law. None of that mattered to me at all. I really wish it would have ended. I really wish it would have ended on that shot. By the way,
there were just a lot of clips, like even with like the car, her driving into or wanting to drive into the chair. So
yeah, why did we need all that? I also I have like a personal thing with crematoriums. So there's this movie Scrooged with Bill Murray, and it's a Christmas Carol, but in the late 80s or early 90s. I think it's an early 90s movie, maybe 1990, 1991, could be 1989, somewhere in there. Anyway, I saw it when I was young, and there's a scene where, in A Christmas Carol, when he finally gets to the end and Scrooge sees him in different versions of it. Sometimes it's his funeral, sometimes he's at his gravestone. There's always Scrooge dies at the end, and he dies alone. Well, Bill Murray's character finds himself watching his own body be cremated, and then he sort of transports to being inside the whatever box they cremate you in, and the flames are encroaching, and he's banging. He's like, no, let me out, I'm still alive. And anyway, ever since seeing that movie, that gave me, it's a comedy, but it's like a dramatic moment in the movie. It made me really freaked out that gave me the, like, my version of a buried alive fear.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of cremating somebody before they're ready to go. And anytime that something has happened in my life where I feel like it's not happening, but I can't quite, or it shouldn't be happening, but I can't quite control it. Like we moved one time, and it was a really huge mistake for us to move. We shouldn't have done it. And Kaya's laughing. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And as we were like driving away from that house, I felt that feeling that I felt as a little kid watching the crematorium scene. I was like, it felt like
really?
I was like, this thing is happening that shouldn't be happening right now. Why is it happening? Why can't I stop it? Why did I do this? And so every time I see a crematorium scene now, I guess your generation would say it triggers me.
Yeah.
To have those feelings from watching a crematorium scene when I was way too young.
Is it like, okay, I've never like witnessed this, but like, do you see the body? Like, you don't normally see the body, right?
No, no one sees the body. So that's just movies putting the camera in the box.
But she was looking at it. She was watching, and I found that. Okay. That's not whatever.
I don't think.
I didn't think it was.
I have been to a crematorium because in a previous life I worked for this energy company, and I sold devices to try to lower your energy bill, and I went looking for places that I thought would have high energy bills, and places like laundromats.
You did there?
Etc. And I, when I was looking through things, I saw crematorium and thought, they've got gas furnaces going all day. Their energy bills must be out of control. So I went to a crematorium. It's not like a consumer-facing business, so there's not a sales office that you walk into, because the funeral home just arranges the services for you, so it's more industrial. But they had a door open, like a garage door. I walked in through the garage door, and they're pushing bodies into burners. It was wild. I didn't see any bodies. I saw the box that they pushed the bodies in.
No,
I saw the crematorium, like whatever the thing is itself, like the oven, and I saw smoke coming up, and I kept thinking, I'm breathing in bodies right now.
Oh, that's trauma.
Yeah, and I actually thought it would get rid of those feelings for me of the movie Scrooge, like the nightmares of cremation that Scrooge planted in
Yeah.
me. Didn't. I think if anything made it worse.
Okay. No cremations for you.
No, it's the finality of cremation is what is so
It's
horrifying.
crazy.
Because if
Yeah.
you think like you're buried under the ground, at least you decompose slowly. There's something comforting about that. Or like you go
Yeah.
into you
That's
go back
why I
into the
like that they
world.
did it in the movie. It's so permanent.
It's
It's like
so
all of the,
permanent.
it feels like the energy is gone or something when you're
And
lit on
and
fire.
and you feel like they did it immediately.
Yeah.
They found the body, they shoved her in the oven.
Yeah.
That was what happened. But
That would have been an amazing ending, I think.
yeah, and there's probably another name for it. It's probably not called an oven. There's probably some term for what it is, but whatever. We know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that I don't know, something for me the finality of cremation is particularly horrifying because like if you're buried, you go into the ground and like worms eat you and trees grow out of you, like you're compost, which at least
Yeah,
your
you go
energy
back
is
to the
being
earth.
released. Yeah, your energy is released back into the earth as opposed to becoming pollution.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. Any last thoughts? Anything we did in the last one that we talked about that we should do in this one too?
I don't think so. I think just in general,
It was fun,
yeah.
and this is the blindest I think we'll ever go into a movie, or maybe we
I
should do
like
this
it
more.
though. I prefer that. I feel like if you choose a movie, I like to go into it blind, and I probably will continue to do that. And then if I choose one, unless there's a movie that we both really want to see,
Well, we have. To
I
go
feel like
into
right
movies
now, yeah. But I mean, just like I didn't even read about the movie, a summary.
I didn't even watch the trailer.
Yeah, I didn't
And
watch the
that's
trailer
going to be pretty
either.
rare. I didn't see the trailer at the theater. I remember seeing something about it somewhere. I didn't read a full review. I saw something about it somewhere. But I forgot that it was this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that there was going to be adult diapers. And I knew that the canes were going to be clacking around. And those are the
Yeah.
only two things I knew about the movie.
And this wasn't even your first choice for movie. What did you want to see instead?
I wanted to see, what is it called? Speak No Evil? Yeah, I wanted to see Speak
Yeah.
No Evil. We should still
So
see
yeah,
that.
I like going into movies blind, totally blind. No trailer, no summary, no nothing.
Blind and Alone.
Yeah,
Best way to see a
Fun.
movie.
for sure.
Yeah, the last movie I can think of other than Triangle of Sadness that had this much feces was this movie called Blindness. Speaking of blind, it's
Okay.
in the movie there's some sort of global pandemic and everybody on Earth goes blind, and they have to try to figure out society without people being able to see. And after like a couple of weeks, it's like people in apartment buildings and hotels, and there's just waste everywhere. It's totally disgusting. And that probably has close to a Triangle of Sadness level of bodily fluids and solids, but it's the same grossness as this. So
This
is the
felt
last
like
time I
every
remember
scene.
sitting in. It was, and it was so real. That's the thing. Triangle
Yeah.
of Sadness is so comical.
Uh-huh.
And this, the only time that it's comical in this is when she like spreads it all over the mother-in-law spreads it all over the walls.
Ew.
That's pretty horrific and awful.
Yeah.
But other than that, it feels very real. It feels like if you were really caring for somebody who was incontinent the way she is, this is what you would be dealing with. And I think that's why it's so much more real and so much more horrific. Mm-hmm. But this wasn't scary. This movie wasn't scary.
There was no like scary moment for
The
me.
couple of religious horror moments and the couple of
Yeah.
like nightmare daymares that Belinda had were scary, but not. Other than the one jump scare, this wasn't like I would say this was more dreadful and gross.
Yeah.
Than scary.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right. I think we should wrap it up on that. Who knows what we'll see next week? We would love to hear from you guys listening. What's working about this? What's not? We're going to keep workshopping this format. I'm having fun. Are you?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we hope to inspire you guys to not be afraid to go see movies on your own, because it really is a blast. And the more of you that see movies alone, feel free to talk to us. We'll have social media, right? Do we have social media where
We
people can
do.
reach out to us? We have social media. We'll start posting stuff there. We'll be posting our Letterboxd reviews. There'll probably be one coming out tomorrow. We write those from the perspective of both me and Kaya. So you'll see both of our thoughts on the movies that we see. There's one, the very first movie, I wrote it from my perspective only because we didn't know what we were going to do, and that was Dune.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
Dune,
didn't
you'll
see
see
it.
just me. But yeah, all these movies from now on, you'll see what both of us thought of it. We're really more reviewing the experience than the movie. I think on the podcast we go more in depth to the movie. But yeah, let us know what's working, because we want you guys to enjoy this. We want you to see movies. We want you to help create this solo movie going community with us.
That's all. Peace out.
Peace.